Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'm so excited because this is actually the 98th episode of our show. We started this show back in February of 2021, and we're fast approaching our 100th episode, which will be coming up in the next few weeks. This particular episode brings me to a superintendent who serves in a district with the letter S, but it's not Sumter, South Carolina. His district is Suffolk, Virginia, which is in the southern part of the state of Virginia, and it is in the Tidewater region. My guest I met at the last American Association of School Administrators National Conference on Education, and I'm excited to bring him to you at this time. My guest is Dr. John B. Gordon III. Dr. John B. Gordon III is a division superintendent of the Suffolk, Virginia Public Schools, a lifetime educator with leadership experiences in Chesterfield, Fredericksburg, Richmond, Virginia, all in Virginia. Dr. Gordon understands how education should be customized to fit the needs of all students while expanding opportunities for the future. As a former successful high school basketball coach, where he won numerous championships over a 10-year career, he is an expert in team building and strategic planning and serves as a role model to today's youth. Dr. Gordon was the first African-American principal at James Monroe High School and the first African-American chairman of the Virginia High School League. A renowned speaker and motivator, Dr. Gordon is the author of The Teacher's Lounge, The Real Role of Educators in Your Schools, which navigates life as an African-American male in predominantly white suburbia. He also serves as an adjunct professor at the University of Virginia and is president of Schools That Inspire, LLC, where he develops transformational strategies for students, teachers, and instructional leaders. Dr. Gordon was recently named as a 2022 Superintendent to Watch by the National School Public Relations Association. Dr. Gordon earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from the University of Virginia, a Master's of Education with a concentration in social studies from the University of Virginia, a postmaster's certificate in educational leadership from Virginia Commonwealth University, and a doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies from Virginia Tech. He has 3 children, Marcus, Kennedy, and Simone. And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience, Dr. John B. Gordon III. How you doing, brother?
Doing well there, sir. How you doing, man?
I am absolutely doing fine and thrilled to have you on the show. We share a gentleman who now works under your leadership and used to work with me, and he's told me a lot of wonderful things about you as well as other people. So I'm excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, definitely thrilled. It's an honor to be on here, man. You know, you should have had me on here for episode 100 to make it even special, but it's all
well, hey, you never know. We might roll you back real soon. So how about that? How about that? Well, look, talk to us about the Suffolk Public School District and some of the wonderful things you have going on there, and then we'll delve into some questions from there.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I've been the division superintendent of Suffolk for about 3.5 years. I actually started in October 2019, 5 months before the pandemic hit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Had a couple of months of what we would probably consider normal leadership before we really had to go into crisis mode and be as innovative as we can to not only keep school moving forward, but also to make sure that we kept our staff and our students safe. 14,000 students, 21 buildings, 19 of them are comprehensive, 1 alternative, 1 technical center, a total of 11 elementary, 5 middle schools, and 3 high schools. And we're on the south side. Suffolk's one of the region. We're 56% African American, 30% Caucasian, 6% biracial or multiracial, and 6% Hispanic. And those numbers are evolving every day. We're definitely becoming more and more diverse. Especially if we take a look at our student enrollments, about 15% special education.
Oh, wow. Okay. good diversity. Sound like a very, very diverse group of
Yeah,
students.
definitely is. 2,300 employees, and one of those well-known facts is Suffolk is actually the largest city in Virginia per square miles, 432 square miles.
Right. And I knew that, but I forgot that. So that's worth noting. It's a very large area, and we can be down by what is it, Whaleyville, and that's Suffolk. And then if you go up to Harbor View, you're still in Suffolk. So it just
Right.
depends. Yeah, sure. All right. So tell us a little bit about. You mentioned that you started serving in that role right before the pandemic. So talk to us about some of the challenges of going through that, and then even now, post pandemic. If we're post pandemic, some days I wonder, but anyway.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think the biggest challenge for us is because we have some of those rural areas. You mentioned the Whaleyville borough specifically. The
Right.
biggest for us at the time was the lack of broadband, lack of internet capabilities. And so the first thing I did was make sure I got in line, and I ordered Chromebooks the day that we closed, because I knew it was going to be a mad rush, not only in Virginia, but I was figuring, talking to other people across the country is going to be the same thing. But I also wanted to make sure that I had hotspots and other ways that our students and staff could be able to access what we were going to do with our online virtual platforms, using Canvas, making sure that we did whatever we could to give the kids a revised bell schedule. And then for the staff, because I really wanted them to still come to the buildings, because I didn't want them to have that distraction of trying to teach from home when you may have little children around, when you may have animals or other types of things. And I also still kind of keep them in that professional mentality. We actually pay for childcare for any of our employees that needed it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great way to really kind of let them understand we were concerned about their whole social emotional health, their well-being, that it wasn't just for students, that it was for staff as well, but also reinforce that family atmosphere. So, as we began to come out of it, one of the things that we noticed is that the subject matters that didn't have to have as much hands-on instruction, like English, for example, didn't really have lower student achievement scores. But math and science definitely dropped because the kids needed to be in the classroom, really need to be able to touch it. And so we began to try to do some different things. I really wanted to do away with that term called learning loss.
That's right.
We really focusing on what we were titling as accelerated learning, where I was trying to catch the kids back up. I didn't have Chromebooks at the time for my elementary level, so we really want to try to do the 9 weeks of instruction that we lost in that 1920 school year and kind of tack that on to the 2020-2021 school year. So I did a lot of summer enrichment programs, did a summer bridge program to help out transition grades, K-1, 2-3, to really help some of our kids that were, had a stronger grasp still, to make sure they were being challenged, but also to be able to provide some remediation and support to the kids that may need a little bit more. We have about 47% free and reduced lunch here. So I knew that we had folks that not only lost their families, but people lost their jobs. People had to move because leases were up. I mean, those are the types of things that I always had in the back of my mind for any decision that we made. And thankfully, our school division had some tremendous gains last year to get some of those scores back up. But we still did, like everybody else, you had a lot of teachers and a lot of educational staff that decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and retire. This isn't something that I want to continue to do, because, the pandemic really affected people in different ways. And you had to be, respective of that. And you really had to understand that you never know what was really going on in people's homes. And we were just happy and thankful that they came back to work. So now, with this being a year or two of kind of being back to the quote unquote normal, and Virginia has finally stopped us having to kind of release and keep track of all of our quarantine and positive case data. Now we're really kind of getting back to the way that things were right when I started.
But you all are already seeing some increase in student achievement data, sounds like. So that's a wonderful thing.
Definitely.
It's a wonderful thing. So you mentioned a little bit about recruitment and retention. And I know in North and South Carolina, we've had an issue with recruitment and retention. It may not be an issue in the state of Virginia. That was actually a joke. I'm sure it is there too.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the things that you guys are doing, perhaps to make sure that you are effectively recruiting and retaining talent.
Yeah, so the first thing I did is I actually changed our recruiting map.
Okay.
The first year I took over, there were a total of 12 math graduates in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia.
Woo.
And out of those total of 12, 9 went into the private sector because they can make more money. So, one of the things we really try to take a look at is how can we make being a teacher cool again, right? Really, one of probably the second thing I did after I did the Chromebook initiative with SBS Connect is I signed this Nike deal right here. And I really want to try to find ways to kind of galvanize our school community who is really big on extracurricular activities and sports.
Uh-huh.
Talk with local AAU legend Boo Williams, who remember me from both my playing days and my college and my coaching days. And he basically hooked me up with a Nike contact. And we actually used James Madison University's Nike cooperative deal and then elevated it to try to have some incentives for regional and state champions. So that was a way that I was really trying to get the kids back involved in schools. When it came to the recruiting map, one of the things we did is we actually started coming your way, right? Okay. We came to North and South Carolina because I forgot I paid more.
Okay.
Do whatever we could.
And you're kidding. No. Okay.
We tried to do whatever we could because we had some folks, like you mentioned, Mr. Privet and some others. We
Sure.
had folks that had some contacts really we hit North Carolina harder than we hit South Carolina.
Right.
But the further you go north, that's usually how the socioeconomic and the pay works.
That's
but
right.
last thing I did that I think is, I'm still doing is last year during graduation, we always would get a list of the kids and what they would want to do for our undergraduate ceremonies. And kids that were mentioning they were going to major in English or majoring in biology or whatever. Man, I started offering them guaranteed contracts. So okay. I was like Oprah during graduation. I would call their name up, William Wright. You got a job.
Okay. Okay. All right.
As of attendance for 4 years or 5 years if they got their master's degree after they graduated, and the look on the kids' face was of shock and amazement, but it was also you would see the family members in the stands. They would stand up and start clapping because it's a look of relief on their face, knowing the kid graduates. They can come back home to Suffolk and work for us. And that's something I'm going to continue this year. Last year, I gave out about 9. This year, I'm giving out 27. And our kids don't know that yet because I'm going to call their names out. We actually graduate on June 10th.
Okay. Wow. How about that? I'm taking some good copious notes here, brother. That's good stuff. And a great mindset. That's awesome. So, along kind of those same lines a little bit, but a little bit differently. This future of education, public schools, we're getting hit from all sides. There's a lot of the word I'll use on my show, because it's my show, is political infighting that's happening right now that gets in the way of our bottom lines. What do you see for the future of education, Dr. Gordon? Of course, we have to be careful, but I want us to kind of delve into that a little bit if we can.
Yeah, so it's a challenge.
Sure.
There is literally a playbook that is out there to disrupt education.
Absolutely.
And the whole plan is they really want to be able to attack this from the grassroots level by impacting and influencing school boards.
Uh-huh.
The goal is to be able to challenge what was actually working. Like, to a lot of individuals, the term equity was a threat because we were actually making progress, right? People were having the opportunity to really receive all the supports and resources that they needed in order to be successful. And that goes against the whole concept of I can separate my child away and almost have a private school education if I can get them to all of the AP dual enrollment and honors classes. Uh-huh. And the plan of education is to be able to have that level playing field for all. So the fact that you had other individuals that were infiltrating that, so to speak, then you became a threat. When you had people who were non-people of color that were agreeing with some of the policies, the equity policies, diversity, equity, and inclusion, other things that we were putting forward, when non-people of color were signing on to that, then all of a sudden they became woke. Like, woke was a term that African American culture created, and then it was hijacked to become a negative term because it meant that you were actually serious about judging people based on their ability, not the color of their skin, not their sexual orientation, not their sexual identity, and so forth. So we really are at like this dividing point where either you're for public education, you're not. And the specific reason I talk about school boards, because school boards are the ones that actually can change the policies.
Right.
And those policies are the things that can really affect the kids. But also, the school boards were the ones that were hiring your educational leaders. So that's the grassroots plan. So I have a lot of colleagues across the country that we communicate and text and talk about this all the time. And one of the things I think that really needs to happen is you have to expose the playbook.
Sure.
To be able to put people into these seats that you and I have that will actually follow suit and do things that will hurt BIPOC students,
right.
that will affect transgender students. Where, to be honest, if you talk to kids, none of this stuff matters to them.
Right, right.
The kid, the other person is being respectful to them, they don't have a problem with it. The racism piece, the sexual identification piece, that's more of a challenge with our generation than it is with Generation Alpha, the group of students that are in there right now.
Right. They don't even see it as an issue. Amen.
Yeah. Kids don't even see it. They all play on the same teams. You know, they know who is in whatever group. Doesn't matter to them as long as that person doesn't bother them. You know, as long as that person doesn't bother them. And so that respect factor has to be there. And I'm really concerned about the field of education because I don't know who this next group of leaders is that they're going to have the energy to fight this. You know, we've seen too many leaders that have been terminated without cause.
Right. That's
People
right.
Awards 1 month, out of a job the next month. I was on a call with Discovery Education, brilliant superintendent from Arizona, terminated without cause. You know, you have states that now say don't use the word race. You know, I had a strong conversation here in my city about racial tension because I think that's one of the main factors that's creating some of these disparities that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Not told don't talk about race anymore. What? As a black guy, you gonna tell me, John Gordon III, not to talk about race is not gonna happen.
Right.
But that's because it was making people uncomfortable, especially when you put the truth out on the table. So until we can have those conversations, until you can have non-people of color that are willing to also have those conversations and not say that they support you behind the scenes, but to say they can be vocal and support you in public, that's how you make ends with this. And one of the things that a lot of times doesn't happen is people don't even ask the kids' opinions. And to me, that's the biggest mistake that we're making as adults that are leading this generation.
That's right.
We get the kids' perspective. In no situation or organization would you make major changes without getting the feedback from the people that it affects.
That's right.
Why would we do that in the field of education?
Except public education. That's right. That's exactly right. And so much in there. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. But I want to go back to something that you said because a lot of us are facing this. So what I heard you say is student achievement in your district has rebounded and you're getting some positive growth and kids are learning and doing what they're supposed to do, but you're having to battle infighting because a black man's supposed not to use the word race.
Correct. You know,
you didn't say that, I did, but that's what I heard.
No, I don't have any problem saying, I'm an extrovert.
Sure.
And my parents were thoroughly involved in the civil rights movement.
Sure.
So they taught me that as long as you have your knowledge base, as long as you know what you're talking about, as long as you have people that are willing to take that stand, then do it.
Right.
I can't sit back. City of Suffolk Public Schools was one of the only school divisions in the state that is still under a civil rights desegregation order because of the way that the boundaries were drawn.
Oh, wow.
No, this is something that's been going on since the 70s, and we're still under it. Brown versus Board of Education was 1954. I mean, it makes no sense. And so because I'm actually bringing these topics up, because we can put in all these different programs for student achievement. But what does that matter if you have a staff member who looks at this kid and automatically makes up their mind because of what neighborhood they come from, because of the color of their skin? That plays a role. And so students only will do well if they know that the teacher, the educator actually cares about them. But if they're judging them because of the color of their skin, how much money their parents make, or in some cases because the teacher actually taught their parents, then it creates a whole different dynamic that you don't read about in the textbook. That perception, that willing to belong, that willing for the kid to feel like that they're actually loved while they're in school, that plays a huge role on how much energy and attention they're going to play, or if they want to be in that classroom itself. Those are some of the things and conversations that we're having. We had, I'll tell you about those math scores that dropped. Those math scores came up 21% last year.
Oh, wow. Congratulations on that.
But my 10 to 15 very vocal naysayers, all they want to talk about is I'm spending money on turf fields. Damn right I'm spending money on turf fields because I got all these state championship teams, because I've invested in athletics, and because
Right.
athletics, look at how the scholarship money has gone up. Look at how the discipline data has went down. Look at how more of our kids are engaged in.
Yeah.
But because it's not something that either they thought of or something they believe in, they want to fight it. I mean, it's so interesting. And the same thing probably happens at your meetings, where the naysayers and the people that come to speak don't even have kids in your school division. Then I'll take a look at one of my neighboring localities at their school board meeting. Damn, it's the same person speaking at your meeting that was speaking at my meeting.
And they're certainly first cousins, right? If nothing else, that's right.
It's part of the plan, man. It's
That's right.
really part of the plan to distance public education and try to find ways to reroute those dollars elsewhere.
Yeah. So very true. You're on it, brother, for sure. And we have to figure out how to tell the whole story. If somebody's going to tell a story, first of all, it needs to be factual, and many times it's not. These folks that you're talking about that are showing up. And then if we're going to tell a story, we need to tell the whole story. I'm okay with you saying I spent money on turfs, as you said, but tell the story about 21% proficiency improvement in math in 1 year, because that's historic. I mean, we could take that information, and Dr. Gordon could get a job and double his salary probably in corporate America. If you decided to do that based on that, they figured out that you could increase productivity by that much. So, but anyway, we just need folks to tell the whole story, don't we? Sometimes, sure do. So, you have been an award-winning coach. I got a little bit of that information, but I've also done a little research. You were a bad man on that coaching floor, from what I hear. Mm-hmm. But talk to us a little bit about the parallels in your coaching success, and what parts of that you try to take into the superintendency every day.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Wright, I think that's the same thing. Like, instead of us coaching, and I'm sorry, we got a fire truck going by, but instead of us coaching students or juveniles or student athletes, now we're coaching people.
Sure, absolutely.
This one's loud too, man.
It's okay.
Use the exact same piece where I talk to people in the beginning of the year. If it's my team or have it filtered down to others, I talk to the people about what you think your role is, right? All 14,000 of our students are supposed to set goals for the year, and then the teacher's supposed to be able to come in and check in on those goals as the year goes on. And that's also a great way for the teacher to be able to learn a little bit more about the kid. And hopefully that will encourage the teacher to be able to support the student outside of school, going to their game, going to their concerts, going to their clubs and events. Those are the things that help to build those relationships. But once you're setting those goals and you have those check-ins, then you want to try to make sure that you have that consistent communication about what you can do to take the next step. I'm always been really, really big of taking a look at what is going on and figuring out how we can make it better. And I also believe that people can tell when you are really taking care of them by how much you're investing in them, right? when it came to building the basketball programs at Armstrong and Meadowbrook High School, I had 4-year and 5-year plans of what we were going to do with uniform replacement cycles, camps, exposures, bringing colleges to them. It's the same thing that we're doing here, where we're trying to make sure that if we're trying to become the premier school division, I'm going to have these great partnerships that we're going to develop with STEM Century, Town Bank, United Way, different things that have never been done before. We have this book that's coming out with 21st Century Ed in July that kind of talks about how we revamped our whole curriculum and incorporated STEM into it, right? Mm-hmm. A school division that wrote a book about standards of learning, incorporating STEM to help with economic workforce development, never been done before. I started a specialty center here at Lakeland High School called the Center for Performing and Production Arts. So many school divisions have fine and performing arts specialty centers, right? That's a dime a dozen. But no one, to my knowledge, had one that was mainly focused on the production side. What happens on the other side of the campus? And some of that came from our partnerships that we had with Pharrell Williams on a couple of projects. But then I also started doing my own research and realized, man, these kids can make 2 and 3 times as much money and have a longer career than being in front of the camera. So those are the ways we were trying to be innovative in taking a look at things. And it's literally the same thing I did, when I had the Nike deal as a coach, and Sonny Vaccaro hooked me up with that. And then I had my players that were going to the Nike camps and things. That was bringing positive exposure back to the school. So that anytime a new coach was coming on board on the East Coast, they were coming to Meadowbrook High School to see what Coach John Gordon had going on, because they knew, even if I didn't have the players, that if I've seen the other ones, I was a voice that you could trust and be respected with. So I'm really trying to have that same concept and principles with our team. I'm a big believer in the Wallace Foundation coaching model for principal leadership and supervision. I had training through the New York City Leadership Academy. My team has finished theirs up right now. And we started our own called the Art of Inclusive Leadership that is really kicking off as we're developing this leadership framework. This coaching model definitely stems from my days as a basketball coach and the comprehensive program that I put people through. But the whole goal was to make sure that you allow folks to become experts in the field. You gave them the freedom that allowed them to feel like they could actually work without you having to micromanage them. But you also allow collaboration, because before I was making decisions, I was getting that feedback from everybody, and then you make a decision and give everybody the why based on the things that they told you. Right. That buy-in, that gives you the collaboration, but it also provides you loyalty from your team that you're working with, because they know that you value them.
And once people understand that, just like your students did, I'm sure when you're coaching, once your adults understand that too, they're willing to walk through walls for you. And I commend you on that, on that all-inclusive leadership. That's what I hear you saying more than anything, is that your leadership is about being all-inclusive and bringing others along with you and so forth and so on. We got to have some more time to talk, because I want to pick your brain about some things.
Okay.
Moving forward. We'll break some bread together at some point. But what an amazing conversation. I know that our audience is going to get a tremendous amount out of it. Dr. Gordon, is there anything else that you can think of that you might want to share with our audience at this point? Maybe some advice to aspiring leaders or something of that nature?
Yeah, I think it's really about finding your niche.
Okay.
Like, number one, developing your why you want to do it. You got to be passionate about this work. And I'm sure you could tell, Dr. Wright, depending on the question that you asked me, I really dove into it.
That's right.
This is what I wanted to do. My mother was a former math teacher, former elementary school principal,
okay.
For CNP Telephone, Little Verizon, but also was a college math professor. Education was always the end all be all in my house. So for any aspiring leaders, number one, go into it realizing it's not your classroom anymore. Also go into it realizing that the same people, especially if you're working in the same building where you were a teacher, those people are going to treat you differently now because you're in administration.
That's right.
And then you also have to understand that the year goes by a lot faster as an administrator than it does as a teacher. Do some reading. Take bits and pieces of what you've seen that works, as well as what you've seen that does not work, and use that to create your leadership style. Don't try to be anyone else other than yourself, but you can take bits and pieces of what you've seen from other people to help create this new version of you. I do a lot of great work. You mentioned Schools That Inspire, schoolsthatinspire.com, quick plug. I do a lot of educational consulting and transformational leadership strategies for individual schools and school divisions. And that's something that I feel is also part of my passion project, while also trying to help to find ways for more people of color to go into the field of education. It means so much more to a kid when they can go into a school or a classroom and see someone that looks like them. And that is not always the case in education. But I think, it's our job to make sure that we kind of level the playing field a little bit to do so.
All right, let's see. Did I get that right? Schoolsthatinspire.com. Is that what you said?
You got that right, baby.
All right. There you go. So a little shameless plug. I'll give you that one for free. Dr. Gordon, just want to thank you and want you to hold on with me for a minute. We'll come back and close out the show.
All right.
To the Wright Experience audience, just want to thank you for continuing to be a part of what we're doing. We have been away from you for some live broadcasts for a couple of weeks. We're getting ready to wrap things back up. We are fast approaching our 100th episode. I'm in the process of planning for that, and we're going to work to continue to bring you the very best leaders that we can find across all disciplines, of course, with the focus on educational leadership. As you can see, we have yet another amazing guest. Dr. Gordon is certainly a leader who is doing some amazing things for Suffolk Public Schools and in the state of Virginia as a whole. He's been leading children and adults for a long time, and we feel so fortunate to have him aboard the show. Dr. Gordon, just thank you so very much for being a part of this work. And I left the moniker up there for a little bit for folks to reach out to you and contact you. We certainly also have this forum open at any time if you want to come back and share more with us, and we'll be reaching out to you. Certainly appreciate your candor and your approach to leadership. And I like I said, I had heard a lot of wonderful things about you, and now I know that they're true for myself. And I'm sure that my audience will have some comments, and we'll make sure that we get those forwarded to you, and so that you can respond to them at your own leisure. But again, thank you for agreeing to be a part of the Wright Experience.
Thank you.
And to the Wright Experience audience, good evening.